Hello, my friends, I'm Ben, and today we're talking about defensiveness, which I think is a really underrated topic because it's so impactful on our lives. And many of us find it really hard to let go of this behavior, and there's really good reasons why, which we'll get into. And I know because I really struggled with this for a long time, and it creates really deep disconnects in relationships. It can really gum up the works in romantic relationships, friendships, professional relationships. And yet at the same time, if we can start to open that up, become a bit more vulnerable, it really helps us connect to other people. They really appreciate it. And you'd be amazed at how well your relationships, or how much better your relationships can go. There's a specific feeling to defensiveness. It's when you stop trying to work with the other person, listening to them and trying to understand them and kind of work together to understand what's going on between you and where you should go next. And they become your adversary. You close off to them. Maybe you might stonewall them, or you might get more aggressive towards them. But the essential flavor is you're now trying to win. There's a kind of a lawyerly, legal feel to it where you're making arguments, maybe trying to attack the other person, bring up certain things that they've done. It's like, well, I was late, but you're late all the time. This kind of thing, trying to win. And what this really is, it's a reaction to feeling threatened. There's some part of us deep down that feels like it's unsafe to allow what's happening. There's some deep unsafety within us that threatens to come to the surface. And this is too much. It's not going to happen. And so there's this instant reaction of this closing off, this defensiveness. And it can be really strong. Like a lot of the stuff under the surface, like I wouldn't underestimate how painful that can be. And that's why this defensiveness can sometimes be so strong and so difficult to let go of. But what's really going on here, the key principle to remember is that it's never about what it seems to be about. Now, this is a pretty good rule for humans in general, but it works especially well for defensiveness. Because what's happening is when the other person is saying, hey, you were late, or they're trying to raise some aspect of your behavior that they want to talk about. Maybe you live together or you work together and there's something you need to discuss. It's whatever they're doing echoes some past moment you've been in with your parents, with the teachers when you were young, where you felt unsafe or rejected, abandoned, criticized, judged. And there's a huge amount of hurt that came with that, right? And you weren't held in the way to deal with that. And so your body, learns that was an overwhelming event that cannot be repeated. It's like, our parents were criticizing us all the time, and we didn't get any love, and that was horrible. We're never going there again. And when other people they echo that situation, it brings up all those same emotions again. And it can be incredibly painful. You might not even notice that it's painful, right? You might not even be aware of how painful it truly is because the defensiveness comes in so quickly as this coping mechanism. You'll notice that's one of the things about it. It's almost always like instant. It's like a porcupine. It's kind of like, the porcupine senses a threat and it's like, just the spines go up, right? There's no discussion. There's no like, well, let me see about this. It senses that threat and the the little spines go up. Do you like my little porcupine here? And this is kind of what we tend to do as well, which is why it makes it so difficult for us. Because it's this like instant automatic reaction. Another couple of aspects that help us flesh out this defensiveness a little bit to understand it better, it's often related to an identity that we have. So one way of coping with, life in general, many of us have this core sense of being not good enough or insufficient in some way, lacking. And we tend to cope with it by building an identity that's the opposite of that. So this is what I would do. I was very proud of being smart, intellectual, academic. It was like the one way I felt I could distinguish myself and be better than other people. And so I really clung to that really tightly and built my identity around it. And I was terrified of making mistakes or, getting things wrong. And that was kind of that was the hook I would hang my hat on for my self-worth. And when your self-worth is relying on you on a particular identity, and that could be being smart, it could be being kind, it could be being competent, it could be anything. when that's threatened by something that someone else says, it feels really threatening. It's like someone's threatening who we are, right? Us. It's not just about, oh, I was late. It's about you're threatening, you're questioning who I am as a person, or who I think I am, who I believe, who I identify myself as a person, at least on the surface. And that feels really threatening. And so the porcupine comes out again, and there go the spines. Another aspect that's related is kind of the shadow aspect of us. The shadow is those parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at or accept, and so we push them into our unconscious. The parts of us that are maybe selfish or inconsiderate or angry, for example. And if someone's making a comment about us or wanting to have a discussion that might make us have to look at those parts of us, which we've so carefully hidden away in the unconscious, again, that will feel very unsafe and dangerous. And there comes the porcupine. And this is a deeply learned, conditioned response, right? You would have learned just over time, slowly, that this is how I need to be okay. Maybe when you were small, it wasn't safe to be vulnerable, to admit to mistakes. You would have got criticized. You know, the real thing we're looking for all the time as children is love and approval. So we do whatever we have to see if we can hold on to that. And maybe you learn that being kind of argumentative and defensive is your best shot, right? Or you got the sense there was no space for mistakes, no space for you to be heard and understood of what's really going on. And again, you learn that the only option is to be defensive, is to close down. The key thing about this is that it means that you can't will your way out. You can't think your way out, because this is an embodied somatic nervous system thing. It's not a mental thing. You can't choose or will your way into letting go of defensiveness any more than, it's just not something you choose in that way. And this is also why it's so innocent. There's nothing that's wrong with this. You're not doing anything bad or wrong. It's not your fault. It's just something that you've learned, your body's learned it has to do. Just like, when you hear a loud noise and you jump, when you feel threatened in certain other ways, porcupine. So what do you do then? Because you can't try to become less defensive. As I said, it's not going to work. You may have tried this already. Your spouse, your partner goes, hey, you always get defensive. You should just try and get less defensive. And you go, yeah, okay, I'll try it. And the next time there's an argument, just bam, there it is. What really needs to happen is you need to cultivate safety in the body. That's the core thing that was lacking. There wasn't enough safety for those painful emotions. And creating safety in that body can create a space where you can start to connect to those painful emotions underneath the surface. And that's the next step. Once you've created safety, the step is going towards those painful emotions, those invisible parts of you under the surface that are driving the defensiveness. Even though you don't know they're there, because I said the defensiveness happens so quickly that most of us aren't aware of the actual emotions under the surface that are driving it. But if you can start to connect to that young hurt and shame, sense of being not good enough, that vulnerability, that's where the healing happens. As you start to allow that, it's such a relief to go there and to start to feel through some of those layers. And the more of those layers you feel through, the more that they soften, then the defensiveness doesn't have to be as strong because the pain isn't as deep. And then you'll notice, even if you work through a little bit, there might be a little bit more space now to be a bit less defensive, be a bit more vulnerable with the other person. In my experience, they almost always really appreciate whatever vulnerability you bring. And it's like very healing to then receive their approval. They might say, well, I don't like that you were late, but I understand that you were afraid that this was going to happen and that was going to happen, so you were busy and blah, blah, blah. And there's a healing of the relationship rather than this the insane ruptures that defensiveness creates, And you may have known this, ruptures can last for days, when we're getting defensive, decades in some cases. And each time you open a little bit, you get more vulnerable. You then get positive feedback, or often you get positive feedback from the other people who appreciate that. Your relationships work out better. There's a better result. And so you're going to go, oh, that was good. I'll try that again next time. And you can open up a little bit more. Then it works out even better. And it keeps going like this in this virtuous cycle, whereas the defensiveness is this destructive, vicious spiral. So I work one-on-one with people, helping them to work through those kinds of emotions, those deeper layers. So get in touch if you want some support. And you can check out my other videos that go into details around how to do this as well. How to feel your feelings is a good starting point. And I will see you later. Bye.